Hello, this is Dr. Hart. This is a presentation on crime and politics. Politics is about power, and those who have power make laws and also rules that have the force of law, and these define what is and is not a crime. Legislatures, executives, and bureaucratic agencies make policies that have the force of laws. These entities, or those who stand behind them and whose interests they protect, have power. Those without power often find themselves on the receiving end of these policies. So it's the same old story, the powerful versus the powerless. Or is it? Alloplastic versus autoplastic views of criminal behavior. Explanations for criminal behavior start with a strong emotional component. Alloplastic defenses involve blaming outside factors for causing criminal behavior. This blaming of outside factors implicitly involves blaming the power structures that shape them. An example would be blaming wealth inequality or lack of opportunity for criminal behavior, implying that wealth inequality and lack of opportunity were caused by the powerful. So the root cause of criminal behavior is not located in the criminal, but in the nature of society in which he or she lives. Autoplastic defense involves blaming the self for one's own behavior. An example of an autoplastic defense would be a criminal blaming himself for his own crime. Now, thus far, we've been talking about the psychological perspective on alloplastic and autoplastic. But what about sociological, political perspectives and economic perspectives? So another way to put the same thing is that alloplastic view emphasizes political, social, and economic causes of crime, while the autoplastic view emphasizes psychological causes of crime, that is, the personality and mental condition of criminals. Because the alloplastic view sees politics and society as the main causes of crime, it is likely to recommend significant political changes, like drastic changes in the laws or how those laws are enforced, or even replacing existing social and political institutions to reduce crime. The autoplastic view may also offer political solutions, but they are more narrow, targeted, pragmatic, and piecemeal, like reducing the availability of firearms, promoting mental health education, greater access to mental health services, and treatment of prisoners for substance use disorder and personality disorders. Let's talk about substance use disorder and prison population. What is the relationship between the two? First, substance use disorder is a clinical term. Addiction is not, but addiction is generally understood to be a severe manifestation of the substance use disorder. Substance use disorder, or SUD, is a treatable mental disorder that affects a person's brain and behavior, leading to their inability to control their use of substance, like legal or illegal drugs, alcohol, or medications. It is estimated that up to 65% of the U.S. prison population has some sort of active substance use disorder, and when these inmates are released, studies have shown that many will return to using and be arrested again within a few years. Globally, a recent systematic review and meta-analysis found that pooled prevalence estimate for SUD was 51% among women and 30% among men. What is a personality disorder? It's a consistent pattern of perceiving, thinking about, reacting to environment and oneself. It also involves inflexible, maladaptive traits and behaviors evident across a broad range of personal and social situations. Personality disorders become stable and enduring, and they're also evident by adolescence or early adulthood. They impair functioning or cause personal distress. And they're also not due to direct effects of substance or medical condition like head trauma or tumor. So a personality disorder may be comorbid with a substance use disorder. Both can exist together in the same person. But a personality use disorder is not directly caused by a substance. What about the relationship between personality disorders and the character of people in prisons? So there are two psychiatric disorders that, as I already hinted at, that stand out among the others as risk factors in presenting criminal behavior that actually can lead a person to be imprisoned. Addictive disorders and personality disorders. They multiply the likelihood of committing a crime in comparison to the other populations by a factor of 3. One of the personality disorders, antisocial personality disorder, or APD, sometimes also abbreviated as ASPD, which is characterized by a generalized pattern of contempt for and violation of the rights of others, and which generally commences before 15 years of age, when it is normally called conduct disorder. So it's one of those that involves a high rate of criminal offenses, and therefore puts people who are afflicted with this disorder at a much greater risk of imprisonment. However, studies have shown that when compared to other personality disorders, antisocial personality disorder only increases the risk of committing crimes of violence. So when it comes to property crimes, antisocial personality disorder does not put one more at risk of committing property crimes than those that are afflicted by other personality disorders. What about antisocial personality disorder and crime worldwide? Studies reveal that prevalence of antisocial personality disorder among incarcerated prisons were as follows: United States over 35%, UK 62%, Australia 56%, Nigeria 47%, and Egypt almost 14%. Obviously, this is just one study. Exact numbers can vary depending on who does the study, where, and when, but it does seem to indicate that around the world, a significant number of people, somewhere between plurality and majority of people who are incarcerated are afflicted with the antisocial personality disorder. Severe psychiatric disorders, notably substance abuse, anxiety disorder, and mood disorders, are highly comorbid with antisocial personality disorder. So we see here that one person can have 2 or more disorders. In fact, comorbidity is quite common. Individuals with the antisocial personality disorder are 4 times more likely to have a mood disorder, 13 times more likely to additionally have a substance use disorder, and 9 times more likely to have suicidal ideation and attempt suicide, respectively, according to DSM-5. So we see that having antisocial personality disorder puts one at a significantly greater risk of suicide than people who are not afflicted by this disorder. Antisocial personality disorder, sometimes called sociopathy, is a mental health condition in which a person consistently shows no regard for the rights and wrongs and ignores the rights and feelings of others. People with the antisocial personality disorder tend to purposely make others angry or upset and manipulate or treat others harshly or with cruel indifference. They lack remorse or do not regret their behavior. People with antisocial personality disorder often violate the law, becoming criminals. They may lie, behave violently or impulsively, and have problems with drug and alcohol use. They have difficulty consistently meeting responsibilities related to family, work, or school. What are the symptoms of the antisocial personality disorder? Ignoring right and wrong, telling lies to take advantage of others, not being sensitive to or respectful of others, using charm or wit to manipulate others for personal gain or pleasure, having a sense of superiority and being extremely opinionated, having problems with the law, including criminal behavior, being hostile, aggressive, violent, or threatening to others, feeling no guilt about harming others, doing dangerous things with no regard for the safety of self or others, being irresponsible and failing to fulfill work or financial responsibilities. What about psychopathy and crime? Psychopathy is not a clinical entity in the Diagnostics and Statistical Manual 5. It overlaps with ASPD, but there are also some differences. Psychopaths tend to have a better impulse control and shallower emotions, particularly primary psychopaths, than people with ASPD. They also tend to be better at planning and organizing their actions. The Hare PCLR the checklist contains two parts: a semi-structured interview and a review of the subject's files and records. During this evaluation, the clinician scores 20 items that measure central elements of the psychopathic character. The items cover the nature of the subject's interpersonal relationships, his or her affective or emotional involvement, responses to other people and to situations, evidence of social deviance, and their lifestyle. The material then covers two key aspects that help define the psychopath: selfish and unfeeling victimization of other people, and an unstable and antisocial lifestyle. Psychopaths in prison population have been estimated to be between 10 and 25%. In prison populations, almost all psychopaths also have ASPD, but not all ASPD people are psychopaths in prison. So what is the Hare psychopathy checklist? There are 20 items on the checklist: glib and superficial charm, grandiose estimation of self, need for stimulation, pathological lying, cunning and manipulation, lack of remorse or guilt, shallow affect, meaning shallow superficial emotional responsiveness, callousness and lack of empathy, parasitic lifestyle, poor behavioral controls, sexual promiscuity, early behavior problems, lack of realistic long-term goals, impulsivity, irresponsibility, failure to accept responsibility for own actions, many short-term marital relationships, juvenile delinquency, revocation of conditional release, and criminal versatility. Serial killers and mass murderers in relation to personality disorders. Most serial killers are psychopaths, while people with antisocial, psychopathic, narcissistic, and paranoid personality traits likely account for a major proportion of mass murders, and these are mostly untreatable. So, so the dangerous disorders potentially are antisocial, the construct of psychopathy, which is not a disorder but still is a useful construct, NPD or narcissistic personality disorder, and paranoid personality disorder. So these personality styles or disorders, they pose a major problem, but to reiterate, ASPD is the clear leader. More people have ASPD who become serial killers and mass murderers than any other disorder. Other personality disorders that are frequently found in prison populations: BPD, borderline personality disorder, and NPD, narcissistic personality disorder. A person, particularly a woman under severe stress, can become ASPD, can feel and act like a person with ASPD. Of these disorders, BPD is the most treatable. Even the off-label use of Prozac often helps, so Prozac has not been approved by the FDA for treatment of BPD, but in a number of cases it has been used successfully to treat it, and BPD is very likely to resolve itself by the time that people reach their middle age. So by the time people are in their mid-40s, BPD very frequently goes away. People with ASPD seem to improve with advanced age, not always, but they seem to improve, while people with NPD do not. Narcissistic personalities intensify and they become worse versions of self. I am aware of at least one study that contradicts this, but I'm not impressed. I think that BPD definitely get better, ASPD usually get better with advanced age, while NPD do not. So there are a lot of references. You have to be kind of selective. You have to be careful and look at peer-reviewed studies and government studies, because there is a lot of misinformation online. But nevertheless, even with open sources, even without having any access to any academic library, there's a great deal of useful information available on the internet about personality disorders. And what we see here, obviously, is the conflict between two great perspectives. The perspective where many political scientists and sociologists currently are, that crime is the responsibility of society as a whole, because it is society that basically causes crime. It causes criminals to act out. And another perspective that says that crime is caused by the nature of people who commit it. So, and we see that currently there are no effective ways to change the individual. So ASPD and NPD and psychopathy are extremely resistant to treatment. And more often than not, treatment doesn't even happen until after the fact, until after the damage is done, when the person has actually violated the law. Because people with ASPD and NPD tend not to take their condition as, even if they realize that they have a condition, they do not tend to take their condition, the way they feel and the way they act, as a problem requiring intervention by a psychiatrist or a clinical psychologist. So they usually do not seek treatment until it is quote unquote too late and they are in trouble with the law. Thank you.